IISD Reporting Services is here at the Paris Climate Change Talks reporting on select side events. Today, the Global Green Growth Institute held an event on catalyzing commitments into action. The event explored perspectives from different organizations on approaches to financing climate change action and the transition to a low-carbon economy.
Now, the Global Green Growth Institute is an international organization that at the moment has 24 member countries, and it is dedicated entirely to working with developing countries and emerging economies to find a greener model of economic growth. Green growth, addressing climate change are concepts that all countries buy into from a moral point of view, but they often very much struggle to understand how they can really make that work in practice.
Public-private sector collaboration features prominently in their strategies for finding new ideas that can attract investment.
The goal of the lab is really to catalyze private investment in emerging economies and using public finance most effectively to really reach climate finance at scale around the world. So who's behind the lab? The lab is actually being guided by a group of 22 high-level finance experts from the public and private sector. The lab does bring a new approach to catalyzing investment, and it does so by really crowdsourcing ideas from a wide range of actors.
Dr. Barbara Buchner of the Climate Policy Initiative provided concrete examples of how financial instruments can work in practice.
We have an agricultural supply chain adaptation facility, which actually aims to to partner with agricultural companies to help actually local farmers get technical assistance and access to finance for resilient technology investments.
Attracting finance is critical to scaling up.
How to get the private sectors involved in this business, because they are looking for profit. Actually, we are using our own seed money to do feasibility studies and inviting officers from developing countries. But once we finish up feasibility studies and we are ready for scale up, but we cannot find the good funding. Hopefully we could get good funding from the lab, Barbara.
In this year, we ran what we call a climate launch pad. We had in 28 countries over 700 ideas. And if you look at the maturity of our entrepreneurship program to date, 84 entrepreneurs have raised over 150 million euros from the private market. So you see that there is a tremendous interest in new ideas.
The CEO of the South Pole Group noted a wider shift in the financial sector.
Over the past year, we have seen an explosion of demand from pension funds, from endowment funds, from faith-based funds, who are all of a sudden interested in understanding the climate impact of their investments. There's a very clear business rationale behind that. There is physical climate risks, and there is litigation risks, and there's transformational risks in the CO2. The second reason is money. You can take any point, you can backtrack as much as you want. If you have gone low carbon with your investments, any time over the past 5 years, you had higher returns.
Panelists agreed that the Paris climate change talks need to send a clear signal.
We have national action plans that have been submitted by pretty much every country in the world. The challenge now is how can we take that to implementation? How can we really ensure that action is taken not only to address climate change, but also to take global economic growth in a greener direction?
It's the general signal. It's the sheer fact if one of over 190 countries agree that climate change exists and that it's a serious thing and we're going to do something about it. You cannot imagine what impact that has. But in a lot of boardrooms, we still have people who think that climate change is actually not existing. It's just an up and down of normal processes.
Never before have business and investors, cities, states and regions been acting at scale on climate change in the way that we see here this year in 2015. And that, of course, gives us a lot of promise. I think it gives us a lot of momentum.
So I think what the private sector is looking for from Paris is a clear long-term goal of net zero well before the end of the century. That
Governments are serious about transitioning to a low carbon economy. The private sector also wants to see that there is a review mechanism so we can come back, assess progress and increase ambition over time, and that we need the right frameworks to unlock climate finance. The private sector is sitting there saying, is government going to really move? Because when government really moves, we can really move. We can invest differently. So we need that very clear signal from Paris.